Hello, I'm Joe Galvin, Chief Research Officer for Vistage Worldwide. Welcome to the Vistage Coaching Spotlight, a video series dedicated to exploring the challenges and opportunities facing CEOs and leaders around the globe. In each episode, we'll be speaking with some of the world's best and brightest executive coaches, seasoned mentors who are on the daily leadership climb with business leaders every day, guiding them to make better decisions and become even more effective leaders. Today, we're speaking with my friend and Vistage Chair, Tim Gallagher, about the challenges faced by the small and mid-sized business CEOs, and more importantly, what they're doing in response. Tim chairs a Vistage CEO group in San Fernando Valley and Ventura County, California. He has a long and distinguished career in both the corporate world and as CEO of his own corporate communications company. Welcome, Tim. It's a pleasure to have you with us on the CEO Coaching Spotlight.
Thanks, Joe, and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, Tim, tell us a little bit about your leadership climb and some of your most significant leadership accomplishments.
Well, thanks, Joe. And it's like Jerry Garcia said, what a long, strange trip it's been. I've been the CEO of a middle market company, a daily newspaper with hundreds of employees and tens of millions of dollars in revenue, and then this small strategic communications company with just $1.5 million in revenue and 6 employees. So I've seen it from both sides, the large company and the small company. And to be frank, the part I like the best is the battle of David and Goliath. I've always been the David. I relish that role. When I was editing one of the smallest newspapers in the country, we won a Pulitzer Prize for national reporting. And when I came here to California, my job was to take 5 small newspapers, combine them into one, and do battle with one of the biggest newspapers in the world, the Los Angeles Times, for circulation and advertising. And we won that battle too. So I've always loved being David, but just like him, I had a lot of good Israelites around me to help me on that journey. And I've always had a great team. I suppose that's one of my strengths too. I have an eye for talent and ability to develop it.
Well, Tim, you work and engage with small and mid-sized business CEOs every day. What's top of mind for them right now?
Yeah, Joe, it's, like everybody else, they're concerned about inflation. They're always in a hunt for talent. But the biggest challenge my members are facing right now is, how do I grow market share in a post-COVID world? There's so much uncertainty about what's going to happen next. Will there be another COVID surge? How long will the war in the Ukraine go on? What about the gas prices? And against all of this backdrop, they are determined to figure out how to grab a larger share of the market. That's top of mind for them.
So if that's top of mind, then what are the smart CEOs doing about it? It's one thing to say, oh yeah, inflation, gas prices, can't hire people. What are people doing about that?
Well, Joe, it's like Coach Herb Brooks said to the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team, great moments are born from great opportunity. I love that quote. And this moment in time is an opportunity. So the leaders in my group are expanding their territory. Several are moving toward a model in which they not only install products, but then they develop service contracts to go with them. One of them boldly went in and picked up people from a company that went bankrupt. They doubled the size of their employee base, but they tripled their revenue going forward this year. And this is one of my favorite moves. One of my companies has made a major capital purchase and is looking to utilize this new machinery, not only to increase the profits in their existing business, but this guy created a separate DBA for all the new ventures he expects to take on with this new machinery. I just love that kind of exciting innovation. These guys are absolutely fearless.
Well, Tim, it's interesting because we can get distracted by the headlines, and granted, the economy is doing some unusual things right now, but the long-term prospect for growth is excellent. And we don't want to see CEOs taking their eyes off that growth ball. And you just captured some ideas of some of the folks are doing. It's clear there's real opportunity to grow, right?
Absolutely. These guys are focused on that. Every meeting, every one-to-one, that's what we're talking about. How I get larger, how I zig when everybody else is zagging, instead of being defensive, they're going offensive. I love that about this group.
Yeah. Well, what do you think are some of the things that CEOs need to be thinking about right now? I mean, how do you deal with inflation? How do you deal with the hiring crisis? It's interesting. We just asked this question in our survey, and hiring still remains a top challenge, followed by inflation, followed by supply chain challenges. What are the things that you think CEOs need to be thinking about right now to get through this period of time?
Well, one thing we're doing, and as a matter of fact, our meeting next week is all about this, is how we create the image of our companies through social media channels and elsewhere so that we are attractive to the passive job seeker. it's one thing when there's a shortage of employees to go out and you're competing with everybody else to get the best employees. It's quite another thing to have created the kind of image in the world or in the business community that makes people want to come work for you. Google's not having any trouble finding people now because they've created this great community for the passive job seeker. And so that's one of the things we're working on.
Yeah.
But the other thing, Joe, pardon me.
No, I was going to say, one of the concepts that we see in the community is people approaching their hiring practice the way they approach, as you mentioned earlier, growing their business, meaning how do I create a marketing plan to hire people, just as I create a marketing plan to find new customers?
Yeah, it's true. And what we've seen recently is people who have jumped ship, come from another company, coming into one of my member companies, now bringing some people along with them, saying, hey, you're really going to like it here at company A as opposed to where we used to work at company C. So they've become some of our best recruiters as we try to grow. But no mistake about it, it's a very, very tough market out there now for hiring.
Right. Inflation is one of those topics that dominates the headlines, but clearly the impact of raising prices and having prices being raised on them by suppliers. What do you see your folks doing about that? The CEOs you engage with on a daily basis?
It's just like it's always been for a long time. You have to anticipate the customer and the consumer needs. The best companies, they're creating goods and services that the customer does not even know that they want. I heard Alan Mulally at Ford yesterday talking about subscription services as Ford moves it forward into the future, because people are expecting heated seats and power steering. They're not expecting some of the other things that Ford is talking about. One of my favorite cartoons is that one called Bizarro. Yeah. And in this favorite cartoon, the delivery guy's at the door holding a hot pizza. And the woman answering the door says, hey, we were just thinking about calling out for pizza. And the delivery guy's wearing a shirt that says, psychic pizza, delivered 15 minutes before you think of it, or it's free. Well, I think that's the kind of thinking that Steve Jobs and others have brought to the marketplace in the past. They really think about what the consumer is going to want before the consumer even asks for it. And that's what the people in my group are doing, thinking about what their customer base or their new customer base might want and trying to create that and be out ahead of it.
Tim, one of the interesting data points we collected was that 78% of our Vistage community nationally said that buyer behavior had changed as a result of the pandemic. Have your folks seen that? And if so, what are they doing to adapt to that changed customer?
Yeah, Joe, I think they've seen a lot more higher expectations is probably the best way to put it. Yeah. They expect that when they have paid for a product or services, that to be top shelf, that is the best in business there, or they're going to go look for somebody else. So all the members in my group, they're trying to up their game. They're trying to be at that top tier level of service, even after they've sold a product. That's tops for them right now.
Right. They have that big company experience when they go onto Amazon or other big websites. And that's the expectation they've set when they now come to the small business that doesn't have the resources, doesn't have the budget, but has to compete with that experience.
They do. And, there's no excuses out there. Some of these guys do compete against very large companies in the world. And, their customers don't care about that. They care about the best top service and product they can receive.
Right. Well, Tim, we live in probably the most turbulent times that we've experienced in our careers. Yeah. I talk about the concept of accelerated disruption. What are some final thoughts you have for CEOs that are listening to this about how to ride the craziness of the world that we live in today?
Yeah, this is tough. And one of those things where do as I say, not as I do, because I used to fall into this trap myself. It's the hardest thing because for many leaders, it's so easy to get wrapped up in the day-to-day, answering emails, going to meetings, putting out brush fires. But I'm always encouraging them to think outward and not inward. With your strategic brain thinking turned on, look out at the market and see the opportunities. Are you putting your best thinking out there, or are you just getting through another day? Now, this is hard. And Joe, honestly, I was guilty of this myself many times, but it's truly the best path to success and growth.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for your insights and perspectives. We greatly appreciate it. And thank you for watching the Vistage Coaching Spotlight. If you enjoyed this, be sure to talk about it with colleagues. And if you think you find it valuable, share it with them. For more information and resources and the research we produce on the top issues you're facing as a leader, please visit vistage.com. Thank you, and we'll look forward to the next Vistage Coaching Spotlight.